Hello, everyone. Welcome back to I See What You're Saying, the Disciplined Listening Podcast. I'm Michael Reddington, and today it is my pleasure to welcome our next guest, Cassandra D'Alessio. Cassandra is a business-to-business marketing specialist. She is the founder of Next Page Brand Strategies, author of the book This Won't Be Pretty, and among many other accolades, a former college professor. All of her experience gives her a very unique and valuable perspective on communication that I'm very happy to share with everybody today. Conversation is going to go in many different directions, of course. A few things we're going to get into of note. The power of taking control of telling your own story. It's going to get told one way or the other. So making sure that we take control of it ourselves, why that's so important, and some great advice for how we do it. She's also going to talk about how we prioritize authenticity in sales. Speaking of sales, she's going to talk a lot about the difference between sales, marketing, and branding. Yeah, where they might overlap a little bit, but some important focus areas in all three. And one of the running themes of the entire conversation is how she turns words into strategy. It's a great conversation, and I appreciate you all being here to watch or listen to it today. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode. While you're here, please take a quick minute, share the show, like the show, subscribe to it. Certainly after the show, send us your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. And while you're online today, please take a quick minute to check out our sponsors. You can get over to humantel.com. That's where you can learn more about how to uncover what people are likely thinking and feeling in any moment by recognizing shifts in their body language and facial expressions, which let us know they've had a shift in emotion. I've done all of their training. I highly recommend it. Enter the code INQUASITIVE25 for 25% off your training of choice at humantel.com. For the professional interviewers, head over to certifiedinterview.com. That's where you can learn more about the International Association of Interviewers and the Certified Forensic Interviewer designation. Get all your questions answered at certifiedyinterviewer.com. And while you're online, please check out inquasive.com. That's where you can learn more about the programs our clients ask us to custom facilitate for their senior leaders, sales teams, HR teams, and more to teach them the skills, perspectives, and techniques necessary to uncover sensitive information under vulnerable circumstances in the face of consequences in all of their high-value conversations. We really appreciate you being here for another episode this week. Thank you so very much. So now, without further ado, I introduce to you Cassandra D'Alessio. Cassandra, it is so great to see you again. Thank you for being here. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. So it's no secret. People probably figure out pretty quick that you and I have had many conversations in the past. And I appreciate all that you have taught me. And I'm sure you've taught many others as well. And now I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to share at least some of that wisdom with everybody else. And when we think about communication, there's the communication we do face-to-face, but there's also the communication that we use social media and other tools for as well. And one of the things that I've really loved learning from you is how to do that in a way that really represents quality and credibility. It isn't just content for the sake of content, but it is really all about helping somebody tell their story so it resonates and has the impact they're looking for. And that's important whether we're having a face-to-face conversation or whether we're trying to build relationships via social media or other mediums as well. So I'm really happy to dive into this. And with that opening ramble aside, I thought the first question that I would ask you to just kind of open things up and take it wherever you want is, I've heard you say this a little bit before, but we've never had a chance to dive into it. Why is it so important for people to take control of telling their own story?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head in terms of social media and online. There are just so many voices out there, and people have, as we all know, people have opinions about everything.
Mhm.
And so if you as a business or as an author or a speaker or as just an individual, if you are not telling your story, someone else is going to tell it. Someone else is going to form their own conclusions and their own opinions about who you are and what you do or who you work with. And so that's where, a big part of our business is telling that authentic story. Maybe 10 years ago, I would meet people like, I don't even have a website. I don't need to worry about it. And it's like, but your competitors do. So that's something to consider. You want to make sure that you are clear on who you are and that you're attracting the right type of people.
Yeah, and you use the word authentic in there. And when I think about telling stories online, not only does everybody have an opinion, whether they should have an opinion of that topic. I guess we're all entitled to an opinion, but how and where we share it might be something we might want to think about.
Yep.
But regardless of people having their own opinion, they have their own perspective as well. And that
Yeah.
perspective is largely going to be driven by their life experiences. Who have they worked with? What have they seen? What have they found successful, unsuccessful, so on and so forth. And so as we're telling our story, looking to be authentic, but asking for a friend here, also looking to avoid being like cheesy or salesy or
Mhm.
miss the mark. How do you look at a situation and find the balance between that authenticity without crossing the line into the cheesiness or the salesiness that can be a trap that's easy for people to fall into?
Yeah, I mean, none of us like to feel like a salesperson. Actually, I'm a part of a networking group, and we do have, someone who is that's his job is sales. And I called him a sales guy in one of our conversations, and he got really offended by that. So even salespeople don't want to be called salespeople. I That's actually a really easy quote unquote trick, but it's not a trick at all, which is if you are sharing most of the content that you put out there, whether it's for your brand or just, I'd like to think as an individual that is helping other people. Hey, I found this resource that might be useful for you. Or, hey, we just put up a blog that talks about X, Y, and Z. Do you want to go into a deeper dive on this topic? Join my newsletter. When you are having that type of connection with people, I have found that it is just so much easier when they are thinking of, I need to connect with someone around this topic or this problem that I have. Your name is going to come up more often than not because as soon as we see something, and we just talked about this a couple weeks ago, if you even think it's an ad, even if it's not, you might just scroll right past it. I know I do it all the time. It's really easy for us to just, kind of get overwhelmed with all the content that we're seeing on a daily basis, all the screens that we look at. So I think if you are putting out content that is helpful for that other person, it's about this is how I can help you versus, let me talk about myself and how awesome I am. You just look at your social media feed as a regular person. We all have those people on our feed that it's like, I get it. You went on 17 vacations this year and you make $1 million and your kids are perfect and your house is beautiful and mute. I don't want to see this anymore. I just feel bad about myself. So it's the same in business and in branding, I think, is the more you talk about yourself, people are just they're gonna shut you out.
I would agree. And it's a trap that I'm maybe too fearful about falling into, if I'm being completely honest. And
Yeah.
and as we've talked and you've helped me learn, there's a big difference between saying something, and this is true in face-to-face communication as well, for all of our sales friends that don't want to be called salespeople. But it's one thing to show up and say, hey, my company is great at this. Our service is awesome because of this. Our product is amazing because of this. Great. And we can feel like, okay, I'm telling this to you because I believe it can honestly help you.
Yeah.
But if it comes off to your perfect summarization, we're awesome.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it turns people off. But if we can, I'm no grammar teacher either, but if we can change the subject of the sentence. So now the
Yep.
subject of the sentence is somebody else's experience, somebody else's problem, somebody else's goal. And then ourselves, our service, our company, our product, whatever helps with that. Now, just by rearranging the sentence, it lands differently for people, which, as you've taught me, is so important. Is you were just talking, you mentioned sales and you mentioned brand at different points already in the conversation. And as I was getting ready for this conversation, going back through a lot of the stuff that you posted online, I noticed that you talk about like the difference between brand and sales and marketing. And I feel like those three terms can get interconnected or intertwined or misrepresented pretty frequently. And if I was going to be honest, I'm not sure that I have the perfect differentiation of all three of them. So I'd be grateful if you could walk us through. This is going to be a terrible compound question. If you could walk us through the difference between sales, brand, and marketing, and really the purpose that each one should serve.
Well, it's a really good question. And to be honest, I'm sure there's people who are like, oh, I have the absolute definition. I think it depends on the person you're asking. So you're asking a writer. tell you what I think the difference is. I'm sure a salesperson would tell you something differently. Any other marketer might tell you something differently. From our perspective, so as content marketers, our job is to get people in the door, is or to the door, right? To get them interested in who you are as a business and as a brand. So I don't, for better or for worse, this quote comes from Jeff Bezos, but it's the quote of your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And so that's that, I think that's a really good summary of, what are people saying about you? And that's why it's so important to have a story, because if you have no story, people aren't talking about you. Well, you kind of want them to talk about you if you're not in the room, right? So whether it's good or bad, you're hoping it's going to be good. And then that part of it is, someone thinking, and like earlier, what we said is, oh, Mike is really helpful when it comes to communication. Who do I know is that sticks with me because it's either helpful or maybe it's funny or maybe I resonate with his story or with something that we get a lot. I post a lot about my dog who passed away earlier this year. He was with me for 15 years, and I hate being on my social media, so I'm going to use my dog on my social media. He's adorable. Every single person comments on that, and I actually closed a new piece of business just in the last couple of weeks because she said, "I saw your post about your dog, and I've been thinking about you, and we need to start working together." Fantastic. So that's part of the brand, right? So what people know about you, how they feel connected with you as a brand. And then marketing are the avenues that keep you in front of that person. So maybe they see one post about a dog and they're like, oh, that's really cute. But then they don't see anything else for 5 years. Well, then it didn't do anything. So whether you're using social media, email newsletters, updating your blog for SEO and for the large language models, all of those things are the consistent, I want to call it like exercise, right? You're sort of on a hamster wheel, but the point is that you're moving people closer and closer to making that sale. So that's where you're building that connection. And then once they come to the door, it's a matter of, are they going to walk through it? Are they going to, fill out a contact us form? Are they going to call you up maybe a year later, sometimes 2 or 3 years later, like, hey, I think you did that with me. You had my business card for quite a while before you called me back. So it's one of those things that I think is, the brand is what sticks with people, but then the marketing piece is just kind of what has to keep moving behind the scenes until that person is ready to even have a conversation around sales.
It's a really good way to put it together. So I'm probably going to jack this up, but the brand is what people feel about you or say about you. The marketing machine is what keeps them paying attention or informed or up to date. And then the sales process is what gets them over the threshold. So we got them to the door, but just because they're there doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to cross. So now we have to work them across the threshold. And I feel like a lot of the same principles, I'm making assumptions, a lot of the same principles really carry throughout, like consistency and authenticity, and whether it is quality or tone or messaging, or if it's humor, if it's somebody's a little bit more professorial or scientific, if it's whatever it is, that theme holds true all the way across. So now the brand is consistent. The messaging is consistent, both in messaging and in cadence, I'm assuming. And then that way, when somebody gets to the door, that they are, I guess, more ready to have your message resonate with them, to take the next step and to commit, because everything has been building and consistent. And when I hear you talk about that from like a branding, marketing, sales process, I also feel like the same is true for conversations. Like if we work with somebody, if our brand is consistent, like, I mean, we all have ups and downs and good days and bad days and whatever, but if we are more or less consistent with how we show up and how we interact with people, and so that way, when we get to whatever the difficult conversation may be, i.e. getting a new customer across the threshold, they're more prepared, open, and willing to engage with us during that conversation, because they feel like the consistency means, even if I don't know what this is about or where it's going, I know what to expect for the experience. And that history now has me in a place where I'm willing to participate and accept what happens.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good way to put it, because there's nothing worse if you have some kind of relationship with a person that they're inconsistent, because then you're just walking on eggshells and like, I don't really know what kind of response I'm going to get from from this. So that, yeah, I think that's absolutely dead on.
I say this as a joke, people, please. But like we like to say, if you're going to be a jerk consistently. Because in
Mhm.
an odd way, if you're a jerk consistently, you're actually trustworthy because people can trust that you're always going to be a jerk. But
Yep.
to your point, if you're up and down, now I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. Am I going to get the nice guy? Am I going to get the jerk? So please don't be a jerk. But if you're going to be a jerk, just be one all the time. And then that way
Right.
people know what they're getting into. But to
Right.
step away from sarcastic humor that other people might not appreciate, as we were talking about the brand and the sales and the marketing piece and bringing it together, the word strategy keeps popping up into my head. And I know that a lot of what you do, and I love how you say this, is turning words into strategy. And I think that
Yeah.
that's a great way to think about it. You know, you referred to yourself as a writer. So for somebody who really pays attention to words and word choice and structure and impact and those types of things, how do you turn words into strategy?
That's a really good question. And I don't want to be so bold to just be like, it just comes naturally. But I mean, I think in the members of my team as well. I mean, Erica, I mean, she's a fabulous writer too. It's something I think that requires a lot of patience and a lot of trying to understand, who are we writing to? Who's the audience? When we're working with clients, one of the hardest parts of the conversation is to get that person to think about their audience. If they ever say, well, everybody is our audience. No, they're not. I promise, not everybody is y'all. Like, and they're like, oh, I should be on TikTok. Really? Are you trying to sell to, 18-year-old high school boys? No, they're not. So there's things that we are, really mindful of, that not just what your message is, but what are the other messages people are hearing, right? So if, your audience is, X level in a company and they are struggling with, X, Y, and Z with their team, those are things that we really want to focus in on. We really want to, let's touch on those topics that are, maybe they're already hearing like, oh, well, you have to take this webinar, you have to do this training, and that will break through. They've already done all those things, right? So maybe they're feeling a little more flustered about what the next steps are. Or, we have a couple of clients who are, they provide like mental health resources, and just understanding like, okay, if we're talking to people who are suffering through addiction or suffering through childhood trauma, and even using the word suffering, I don't like that word. I would edit it out if I was typing this out. But just, someone who's going through that process is, you want to be patient and very kind around how you are presenting content. And I think it's not very hard. You don't have to go very far on the internet to find very unkind things. So when you see something that feels like, oh, it's a person that's speaking to me and they're speaking to my specific problem or struggle, I think that goes a really long way. So yes, it's strategy, but it's really just kind of like you said, just don't be a jerk. you know?
If only life was that simple, right? Don't be a jerk.
Exactly. Exactly.
But even as you were saying that, and I'm calling extra attention to it for a very positive reason, I promise. But even saying, well, if I was typing, I would have deleted that word, or I would have replaced that word. Like, we can do that when we speak. Like, just because we say something doesn't mean that has to be the word that gives the lasting impression. I mean, you're right. Words have emotional connotations. Sometimes they create intentional emotional reactions. Sometimes they create unintentional emotional reactions. But there's also plenty of times when two human beings are having a conversation and the word I want to use escapes me.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to stand in front of you silently for 35 seconds having a stroke trying to figure out what the right word is. So I'm going to use it. And oftentimes, you might experience this as a writer. You've written much more than I have. But I write the word that I know isn't the right one. And it helps get me to the right one, because as I'm writing it, I'm like, nah, that's not what I'm looking for. It's this. Or even if I have to come back and read it in the context of the full sentence, I can come back. So even as we're speaking to people, if we say a word, it's, at least in my unsolicited opinion, to come back and say, well, hang on, that really didn't illustrate what I meant, or that wasn't the perfect example. This would be a little bit more appropriate. This hits it a little bit more squarely. This actually might be a better fit. more often than not, I believe that people are open to that. It shows a level of awareness, attention to the audience, and that
Yep.
like we are being intentional about the conversation. And I'd love to this is random, but I'd love to get your thoughts on this. You talked about being authentic earlier, which obviously I'm 100% on board with. But I feel like when people talk about being authentic, again, my unsolicited perspective is that it comes down to like, there's only one you, like there's only one Mike Reddington. So you got to be authentic to Mike Reddington all the time. Well, I can't do that. I can't talk to my 8-year-old the way I talk to my closest friends, the way I talk to my customers. Like it's just not going to work in any one of those environments if that gets crossed up. But that doesn't mean that I'm not authentic. So to reconsider a word, I feel like is showing somebody extra respect in being authentic in a conversation.
Absolutely. I think I kind of disagree with you a little bit. I think you are, there's probably the same themes, which is that authenticity or honesty that you have with your son that you might have with a client. And I think it's that idea of not letting your ego get in the way. I mean, no one likes people's egos, but like I just can't with some of the stuff we see today. It's a matter of saying like, you know what, I didn't mean to say that. This is what I was really trying to get at. You just saying that to your child. Like, what a wonderful way to build trust with them. I think that is it's really, really important. So I think it's probably a thematic across, even if the conversation might be a little different.
I think that's a great point. The word choice might be different, but the theme is going to be consistent throughout. And that's an important call out. And as you mentioned, again, being a writer a couple of times, I'm curious, how has your focus on writing impacted like your overall approach to communication? We've never talked about this before, but I would have to guess like being very strategic and intentional about how structure of writing for different formats
Sure, yeah.
has probably impacted how you communicate with others, how you choose to speak, and how you evaluate other speech patterns as well.
It does, and it has affected the way that I take in content as well. I mean, I can tell when I can really tell when something's AI. I can tell when something does not feel genuine or it feels like I like to say, like fast food for your
Yeah.
brain. Like it's just feels like junk and I'm like, well, I don't feel good after reading that. Or hearing someone speak like that. And it's like relationships too and communication that you have with people. There are just some people that are like, I am exhausted after this conversation. And I think that's the way that people communicate, especially if it's all about them, right? They're just like, oh yeah, and I went to Hawaii and I have $1 million, like all of those things that people like to brag about. So I do think it has changed and it has made me I'll say it has made me I've always been an intentional writer. I prefer that versus this, to be honest with you, because like I said, I can edit those and make sure like I feel good about that. Okay, it's fine. I can send that email now. And we don't have to get into it. It's probably from my childhood and just wanting to confront my parents or something. But it's translated into all of the parts of my life now, especially as I'm a new mom and we adopted our daughter, and her knowing her story and us helping to literally write her story, which is something my husband and I did. We created a book for her that is her story, and so she can see all about why we chose to adopt her, about her birth family and language, and the way we talk about where she came from and how she came to us is so important. And that's one example, but I've never been as conscious of word choices, and what we say now might not be the right thing to say in 10 years, but as long as we're open around like, what, we don't say that word anymore, but this is what we should say. I think it's a beautiful thing, but it's yeah, I do. I take in a lot of content and I become very, very um prescriptive on the types of words that I use.
Congratulations to you and your husband, first and
Thank you.
foremost.
Thank you.
And I think that's beautiful that you put the book together. I'm kind of sentimental. My wife
Yeah.
is definitely the sentimental person in our house, so she's got a bunch of stuff for Gabe. But I love your approach. Speaking specifically as a parent, we do get to help our kids write their own story, and how we talk to them and how they learn to speak and listen and how they learn to speak and listen to themselves are all
Yeah.
very important things that we have a tremendous amount of influence over. And that has to be the most important relationship and conversation that we have. But to take that back even into our business conversations, like we
Yeah.
have the opportunity to help, people might cringe at this word, right? Or even script our
Mhm.
relationships with other people based on how we treat them, how we educate them, how we respond to them, like all of these things that if we're intentional about our word choice, and I'm absolutely guilty of sometimes taking 25 minutes to send a 3-second or 3-sentence email. Like I've been guilty of that. It doesn't have to be that bad. But if we are more strategic and understand, like, okay, this is my first interaction with somebody, a third interaction with somebody. We're going to have a meeting and maybe we're going to hire this person or I'm going to do business with this person, whatever it is. All right, cool. What are my long-term goals? Like, where could this relationship
Yeah.
really take us? Like, as a parent, the long-term goals should be more visible. Like, okay, I've got this little person I need to turn into a successful big person. How am I going to do that and keep us together? But in business, I don't know that we always think that far ahead. It is,
Yeah.
just how do I get them to say yes to the next thing, yes to the next thing, yes to the next thing, which creates those long-term problems. And that's where I feel like your approach of turning words into strategy, keeping that
Mhm.
longer-term consistent impact in mind can really be more impactful.
Yeah, and that's you bring up another good point. It's that you're kind of approaching it with patience again, right? Like that marketing machine piece of it, it is, it can get exhausting. And I remember writing about this, I think, in my book at one point. This was early on, and I shot a guy I met at a networking event, and he reached out to me and like you always do, like, oh, it was nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. I'm pretty good. I usually respond to emails within if it's more than 2 days, then I probably am in a coma. Like, I don't like having unread emails in my inbox. And it was on day 2 that I was getting around to, like, "Oh, yeah, I wanna schedule something with him." Kid you not, it was less than 24 hours since he sent that last email. He wrote back, "Well, I guess you're not interested in meeting with me. Thanks anyways for your time." And it was just very like, alright, well, thank you for showing who you were, so I don't
Yeah.
have to even bother meeting with you." But that lack of patience and that it was almost of this, like, he was expecting to get my business or my time, which is just as valuable, I think, just immediately. And that's number one, not how the world operates. And number two, so I usually respond to my emails pretty fast. So if you don't think I'm fast enough, I don't really know how you're doing business out here. So it's, I think to your point of like trying to build that long-term credibility and just being, I think for me too, it's just so much easier and more authentic for me to just be a natural resource and teacher. And hey, have you tried, maybe you're really nervous about large language models like ChatGPT and OpenAI, all of those, which I've had several clients the last few weeks kind of come to me and panicked about. I'm like, it's all right. Let me share with you some statistics. Let me share with you some of the information that I have around this so that people just feel a little more just more grounded with you and in what your journeys are. Even if they might be separate, they're still, just help people, you know, it's not so hard.
Yeah, we'll get through it. The world's
Yeah.
still going to spin. The sun's still going to come up tomorrow morning. We'll figure out a way. Uh, Lots of great things, but a couple of things jumped out. That's the second or third time you've brought up patience, and I do truly believe that patience might be the single biggest key to great communication. And
Yeah.
all too often, people fall into that entitlement trap of you owe me information, you owe me a response, you owe this to me. People owe it to themselves to do whatever they think is best for them at all times. Nobody owes us anything. So to take that step back and put the strategy in place in order to create the experiences other people need to draw them to our door so we can get them across the threshold is generally a far more successful approach. And I love how you use the word resource, because I feel like if
Mhm.
somebody is a resource, they're like a library. Like, what do you need? Like, I'm here to teach, I'm here to help, I'm here to support, I'm here to lead, whatever it is. Like, I think that's a great word and a great way for people to think about themselves. Be a resource for somebody else, not just here to sell you something or to, even teach you something. Like, if I have one thing to teach you, I guess that's better than nothing. But if I'm a resource and we can actually take unexpected turns and dive deep or find new topics, or, maybe I'm sure you have access or know of references that you can go check that other people wouldn't. So even if you don't know the answer, you'll just go
Yeah.
check those references and then you'll come back. So I
Yeah.
love thinking of yourself as a resource. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, man, I would love to be just a walking library. I mean, I guess I am for marketing, but I just
Yeah.
think of all the things. I just want to know all the random things.
Well, for your
Um,
daughter, you very soon will be.
yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I agree, and it's a slippery slope of how much of my knowledge am I going to share with you without you, paying me for that? That can be a very slippery slope,
Yeah.
as well. And again, especially if you're someone like me who just it's in my soul to help people, I enjoy doing that. I've had to learn pretty quickly to put some boundaries around things. And not too long ago, I know my dad is semi-retired. I use air quotes on that big time. And he had asked me, he's like, "Oh, do you have such and such that I can send over to some gentleman that he had been working with?" And he's like, "Yeah, they really want to hire you. They've been wanting to hire me for over a year now." And I finally said to my dad, I was like, "They have enough free stuff. Let them reach out to me when they're ready for, to have a conversation." So I do think it's a slippery slope, but especially when you enjoy doing it.
It is. And especially when you enjoy doing it and people enjoy working with you or coming to you. And I feel like it's especially challenging in a service business. 'Cause
Yeah.
I feel like and we don't have the same businesses by any stretch, but we're more in the service industries, I guess. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. But like if I sold cars, like somebody's not going to come to me and be like, "Hey, can I have one of your cars?" Like they're
Right.
just not going to do that. But just like you, I get calls all the time. "Hey, can you just come speak at this, or can you just come do that?" And there are plenty of times where maybe I shouldn't do it, but I do. Is it local? Who's it for? Does it work in my schedule? Who might be in the room? Like there's considerations for maybe doing it because, like you, I see myself as a teacher, and if I have an opportunity to teach and I'm not teaching, like, okay, does that go against who I am? Like there's that
Or yeah.
balance. There's that balance in there. But I do agree that at some point you've got to draw the line. And I feel like if somebody has a quick question, which how many times do quick questions turn into really long conversations, by the way? Like a quick question or something I can help with. I don't want to be the guy that says no, but if we're gonna actually start working something up, like we're gonna start like drilling down, then yeah, we probably need to put some barriers on that. And that's something that I'm sure a lot of people have had to learn, and I have as well. I'm not a big fan of just carte blanche. If you want to have this conversation, you're going to pay me. Like, I know people that do that, and that just feels so like somebody met you, you resonated with them.
Right.
They have felt the close enough connection to actually call you and follow up. And the
Yeah.
answer is, you're going to have to pay me for that. That might be fair, but I'm not sure just rushing to that is the best way to handle it either. So finding that balance can be tricky.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. It's like a lawyer, right? They
Yes.
open an email and read it, and they charge you $75 or something for that. So, and no one really likes to contact a lawyer. So, yeah, I wouldn't want to rate that way. Yeah, I agree with you. That doesn't feel good for me either.
So, speaking of being a resource and helping people and sharing our experiences, you mentioned your book.
Yep.
So I want to make sure that we touch on it, and people might be able to see a half a dozen or so copies over your right shoulder behind you on the mantle back there. I want to make sure that we touch on it as well. So your book was written about some of your early business experiences. And if I get this wrong, please forgive me, but specifically about being a female entrepreneur and
Yeah.
starting and launching your own business. So if we can, I would love to take some time and not give away your whole book based on the just conversation we just had. But what were some of the biggest lessons that you learned that inspired you to write that book to help other female entrepreneurs that are looking to launch their business?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking about it. So because it was published in November of 2020. So
Great time.
everyone was it was me and my dog, and love my dad. He sent me a bottle of Macallan Scotch, and so I drank that bottle and
Can I
felt
give
good
you that
about
my address?
what that. Yeah. So it was I published a book, and then I wasn't able to do anything with it. As you know, it's kind of like having a child and you want to like brag about it to the world. So anyways, I appreciate you mentioning it. This was the book that I wish I had when I started my business. Before I started my business, I never in a million, billion, trillion years would have seen myself as a business owner. I was just, it wasn't on my radar. I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs, and let alone, I mean, I didn't have any role models of women in the workplace really, because, it came from a very, conservative, traditional family. And that was just not something that I learned, unfortunately through my 20s and one bad marriage, that wasn't for me. That wasn't what I gave me joy or made me feel like I had my place in the world. So when I started, having my business, I have a creative writing degree. Like I have never taken, I did that on purpose. So I didn't have to take math classes. I don't want to know about accounting. I don't, and this is why I hire a bookkeeper. Things that you know, I think maybe came a little easier for other people, but not for me. And I'm not the type of person where like, oh, I don't live in New York City. I don't, I'm not an alpha personality. I come into the room and I'm just like, everybody listen to me in my power suit. That is some women, and that I think that is what my perception for a long time was of a woman business owner. And what am I going to do with my creative writing degree? Like, how do I don't have a business. I don't have an idea. So I really wanted to write the book to show any woman, if she wanted to go this route, that it was possible, that she didn't have to be someone who was like this high powered, like boisterous person. And she didn't have to have some like sexy, cool, idea to make that you could be literally an accountant in your home. If that is what makes you happy, that's what you should do. So I think a lot of my lessons around that were kind of it's not really specific to females. I just think probably women in general, we don't get those. I don't know that we get that push as much as men in terms of like you could be a business owner, you could start a business, or other people who are business owners and start businesses. So I think, for me, some of the bigger lessons, were number one, not to undercharge myself, which I did for the first couple of years. I just had a conversation recently with a woman she's out in San Francisco, actually. She was asking me about pricing. Before she even finished like telling me what her prices were, I said, I already know that they're too low, but go ahead. What are your prices? And she's like, oh, I don't know, $50. I'm like, $50 an hour? Girl, no, like you gotta be kidding me. Do you know what men are charging in your field right now? Like, I promise you can charge more than that. She's like, oh, I don't know, 60. I'm like, did we get to 75? Let's try 75 an hour, and that's this, I'm talking about someone who's, my age in her 40s. She has experience. It's not someone straight out of college. So I think that was one thing is, not undervaluing yourself and your worth. And then, the other bigger lesson is it doesn't have to be this big thing. You don't have to scale your business to 15 employees. I'm not trying to be $1 million business. I love what I do. I love my team. I love my clients. If that means that I don't make any more money for the next couple of years, like if everything stays stagnant, I love that. That's great. As long, my husband and I always say, as long as we can pay the mortgage, take a couple of vacations a year, good. That's good for us. We don't live very lavish lifestyles. So I think those are some of the bigger lessons. There's plenty of other ones that I could go into. I think I have a whole chapter on jerks and how people are jerks in the world. So there's that too. That
We
kind of
already touched
lifted.
on jerks.
Yeah, we did. That lifted the veil too. But yeah, I think that was the biggest takeaway, I think, for me to write that book. And at the end of the day, if one woman would read it and was like, you know what, I might start a business. That's it. That's all I cared about was the goal of writing it.
I think it's a very important message to get out, and to reinforce your point. I'm fortunate enough to travel all over the place and work with groups of executives consistently. And those are male dominated rooms, to be honest. If there are 20 people in that room, there's a significant chance that between 20 and at a minimum 15 of the people in that room are going to be men. And that's
Yeah.
the fact. And there could be all kinds of different reasons why, some terrible, some reasonable, some positive. I mean, I'm not going to get into the socioeconomic debate of it, but to your point, there probably aren't as many motivations or resources for women who are even considering the idea to bring it forward and to go forward and to give it that shot. And for you to have motivated yourself to go through and do it and be successful now for years, I mean, that in and of itself is a great story. But then to share the lessons from the hard part, like the getting started part, which I think for most of us, certainly myself included, like that's the hang up. It's not, can I make this work? It's how do I get it off the ground? Like, what do I do in the beginning? So for you to address those types of issues specifically for a female audience, I think is fantastic. And we'll make sure that we link directly to the book in the show notes so people can go find it. But I recommend it, and I really commend you for writing it for those reasons.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Hopefully it's a good resource for a lot of people.
So we're going to keep this research. I'm going to beat this resource theme to death.
Okay, great.
You were a college professor.
I was.
You've done all kinds of cool stuff. So what did you learn from having to teach college students who have to be the most like focused and well-balanced and committed people? I don't know if it's worse teaching elementary school kids or college kids. That might be an interesting debate for another day. But what did you learn teaching college kids that helps you now teaching business people? Because when business people come to you, you got to teach them. If they knew what to do, they wouldn't be coming to you. So how did that education experience set you up to make you more successful with what you do now?
Just the way you said that is such you kind of answered the question, honestly. It's such an interesting parallel that I probably didn't think about. So you just said that, with college students, they basically have a choice to be there. I started my career in community college. So, I mean, God, I was 25 years old. Most of the students were my age or maybe older. And, I just remember one of my first classes, and there was this young woman in there, and she just seemed so angry at the world, at being in the classroom. And I don't know where it came from. It was probably just that part of me wanting to be helpful and a teacher. And I said to her after class, I said, why are you in this class? And she's like, well, because I have to be. And I said, who says you have to be in this class? And as I'm asking her these questions, she's kind of like, well, I don't want to be like my mother who's on welfare. Or I don't want to suddenly she was starting to speak all of the reasons why she was actually in that class. And I said to her, and I was like, look, I understand this is, rudimentary English class, but you have to take it to get to the fun classes. So you need to choose to be here and be here, but be here for the reasons that you want to be here. And I swear that next class, I will never forget. She had her notepad out, her pen. She was just very engaged in the classroom. And I was so grateful that I pulled that out of wherever I did in myself and had a positive reaction. Because if it had gone negatively, it might have changed my whole trajectory of teaching. But it's a very similar conversation that, we have with clients, and maybe not in the beginning, but sometimes 6-9 months later, we all get content. You probably get 17 marketing emails a day of people being like, oh, we can help you do this, this, and this. And, when you start to have clients come back to you and they have that, you can tell, and they have that sense of well, I know more than you, or I know better than you, start to have that it's the same conversation. Well, why are you here? Why did you hire us? Let's walk through what you need, and let's get, very clear on what your expectations are. Even though we talk about them in the beginning, most people don't know what they had for breakfast yesterday. So it's important to, maybe kind of reset and let's talk about, I think at the end of the day, it's always that end goal. Maybe you got to do this one crappy class you don't like, or you have to, have another meeting with Cassandra and her team. But what is the end goal of that, right? What does this lead you to? So I think it's great the way you phrased it, because I don't think I saw that parallel until just this moment.
And both those examples, I think, reflect the universality of the human experience. Sometimes building up either the excitement or the commitment to just get started. Yeah. Okay, that's hard, but we can do that. But then when we've been doing something for a little while, going to class for a couple of months, and this is just basic English, or working on a marketing plan for a couple of months, and there's not a parade of new clients standing outside of my door already. I thought that would happen. That middle period, a lot of times, can be the most difficult. Like, I got myself amped up, ready to go. I listened to my favorite song. I'm all ready. We're going to get started today. And then, wait a minute, I got to keep going, and I got to keep going, and I got to keep going. And it's the basics, and it's the fundamentals, and it's the consistency. And it could be the same for exercising and eating healthy and learning how to play music or learning how to play chess. It can be the same for anything. That middle ground can be the most difficult. So to have somebody with that resource mindset to say, well, let's take a look back. Why are we here? What have we learned? What progress are we making? What's this building towards? Becomes so valuable.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's a big part of why we don't just do the word piece. We pull analytics, as you know, every month for our clients. And it's really, we try really hard to not let them, for that point, to be like, okay, great, I had 100 views on this post, but why don't I have any clients? It's that more looking at trends over time. What is saying, and that everything is staying consistent. That's what we want to see. Because if things are starting to take a real dip or no one is engaging with things, then okay, there's something not working that we definitely want to focus on.
We can change it up. You mentioned the words. It's not just the words. And a lot of times in communication, right? People talk about verbals and nonverbals, and whoa, we could have all kinds of conversations about that. But for what you do, how important is, for lack of a better term, the marriage between the words and the images in messages, and even consistently over campaigns?
Yeah. So we have an amazing graphic designer, Chandler, and she always says, the image or the video or reel or whatever you have, that is meant to stop the scroll. So she always says, and I love them because I think it's true. I think that's what we are drawn to. And if I ever come across a post, especially on LinkedIn, that doesn't have an image, they're just like, you're lazy. Why do you do this? You need to, I don't care what you're posting about. You need to have something to just stop me. Usually why photos of dogs do really well, because it could be, that post could be nothing about a dog, but hey, I stopped to look to read this. I really think that helps a lot. And as we know, I mean, we've seen the data for our clients, but also just across the industry, reels and videos, people really connect to those, which I find interesting. Probably because I'm a writer and I don't ever watch videos. I prefer to read the caption. And I think that's another way of just getting people to stop, like, because you just kind of, all of us do it. We get all glassy eyed and we're just kind of like scrolling through things. And if you just get something that's a beautiful graphic or a photo that resonates with you, you stop and then you look at, okay, what is the content behind this? Does this matter to me? And am I going to click on this link now and go, that is like light years when you're coming, looking at the journey that a client is going to be taking to first being, engaged with your brand and then actually, taking action to get to know you better.
Let's give Chandler credit. Stop the scroll. It's a great way to look at it. And I think even conversationally, think about how quickly our minds are scrolling through whatever is going on in our life. So
Sure.
What do I have to do today? What did I forget to do yesterday? What's coming up this weekend? How much time do I have left with Cassandra before my next meeting? Like, all of these things that are going through. And even as we talk to people, like, I joke about the ADHD. There was one day I was in a meeting, and I don't know why I just thought about this, but I'll randomly get different songs stuck in my head all the time. Like, someone will just say a new word, new song. And so I was listening to a guy who I worked for and I like, but he wasn't the most captivating dude in front of a room. So I just started writing down the different songs that would get stuck in my head. So he would say a word or a phrase, boom, new song comes in. And obviously there's some, like, am I trying to do it now? Right. So there's like bias or whatever in there. But in like the 30 minutes I was paying attention, it was 16 different songs got stuck in my head. So I've got problems. We all know this. But if you think about how fast our brains are scrolling, like, how do you show up? How do you present yourself? Like, what's your tone? What's your speed of delivery? What's your word choice? Like, all of these things that we do, we can stop somebody's mental scroll just like we can stop their social media scroll. And that's where I love the authenticity and the strategy and the consistency of everything that you do, because I think it's easy to look at it from the outside and say, well, that's marketing. It's actually communication. And if you take the same principles and you apply to a conversation, they still apply.
Yeah, and it's interesting too to I don't necessarily get songs stuck in my head, but I will get hung up on a phrase or a word this and it could be negative. And I think you wrote about that in your book actually. You were saying something and one of your friends was just like, "Why are you saying that word to me? That word is,
Yeah.
really getting under my skin."
Absolutely was the word.
And
Yep.
I think that there are, I'll just, I'll use myself as an example. Understood. If someone, especially an older man, says to me, understood, I'm 5 years old and my dad is just being like dismissive of my feelings. And I'm like, okay, now I'm going to have to fight you. Like, it's just, and it could be, that's just like, they could just be like, yeah, I understand. And they just chose to deliver it that way. And I think that that's probably true on social media too, right? We get things that stop the scroll, but maybe it's not for a good reason. And it's a delicate balance, which is why it's really important, I think, not I think, I know as a brand and as a person who is, representing themselves as a brand, that you know who you are and what you are comfortable with, in terms of what your business is going to represent. And, in our world today, it is really hard to kind of hide from things. So you need to be really, really honest about that. It's one of the reasons why we don't work with startups. They're still trying to find themselves. They're still trying to figure out who they are. And if you've been in business for at least 5 years, but have, better yet, done what you're doing for decades, you know who you are at this point. Even if you're not sure how to say it, you know who you are, because it's the worst thing to be like, I'm going to put this out here and just see what happens. And I used to use this during COVID. It's like a sneeze. You put something on social media, you can't quite get it back, So you really want to be mindful.
Yeah, it's on the internet. It's going to live forever.
Yeah.
We could keep talking for another hour, and I know you likely have other things to do, which include, I'm sure, soon checking on your daughter. So I want to be very respectful of your schedule. I'm certainly hopeful as I've been sitting here taking notes, and we've talked about these things before. I'm still taking notes that there are people who are listening that are interested in learning more. Either they want to buy and read your book or they want to engage with you and they want to learn more about you and your business. So for people who want to connect with you and learn more, where should
Yeah.
they go? How do they do it?
Yeah, so they can find me on LinkedIn, at Cassandra D'Alessio, and then I do have a website, CassandraD'Alessio.com, where they can purchase my book, or I do have some video courses as well. Or if social media is more their thing, Facebook and Instagram, author_Cassandra_D'Alessio. Hashtag the longest handle in the world.
I'm sure we could probably find a longer one, but I appreciate your effort.
Yeah, of course.
It's always great to see you. I really appreciate you carving out the time to share your experience with us today. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Michael. It was a pleasure.
Cassandra, thank you so much for a fantastic conversation. I truly appreciate your time, all that you shared. I know I was taking notes and hope everybody who was listening was taking notes as well. I really appreciate it. There's so many things we could go back and recap here. I love that you talked about the importance of understanding your audience. And while that might sound common sense, the nuance involved with that, especially when it comes to messaging and turning words into strategy, is so very important. I love how you talked about the power of patience. That's a very important lesson for all of us. And I also think it was very important how you talked about consider the other messages that our audiences are hearing. How are we differentiating our messages? How authentic are they? How are they resonating? Are they really getting our point across, not just the way we want to, but the way our customers need to receive them in such a noisy marketplace? I really appreciate everything that you shared. Thank you so very much. And of course, thank you to all of you for being here for another episode this week. We really appreciate you turning in week after week here with us. Thank you so very much. Please, before you head out, take just a quick second, like the show, subscribe to it, share it. Please leave us your feedback. We would seriously love to hear from you. Thank you so much. And yeah, while you're on the internet today, of course, please go check out our sponsors, humantel.com. Please head over there, check out their online training, their research, their blogs, and then decide which program is best for you. When you make that decision, enter the code Inquasive25 for 25% off. Their best-in-class training to recognize when people's emotions are shifting through changes in their nonverbal communication and facial expressions. I highly recommend it. I've done it myself. It's over at humantel.com. Please also, if you're a professional interviewer, check out certifiedinterviewer.com. That's where you can get all your questions answered about the International Association of Interviewers, all of the networking opportunities, educational programs, resources, and more, as well as the Certified Forensic Interviewer designation. What does it take to qualify? How do you prepare for and pass the exam? And what can it mean for your career moving forward? And finally, while you're online, please check out inquasive.com. That's where you can learn more about the programs our clients ask us to customize for their senior leaders, sales teams, HR teams, and more to teach them how to uncover the everyday confessions hiding within all of their high-impact conversations. Thank you for being here for another week. We sincerely appreciate it. Stay safe, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time.